What if I told you that some of the most beautiful, thriving indoor plants you could possibly grow do not need a single grain of soil? Plants that live for months, even years, in nothing but water. Plants that your grandparents grew on windowsills, in old glass jars before fancy potting mixes even existed. While most people spend money on soil, fertilizer, drainage trays, and complicated care routines, there are plants out there that will happily thrive in a glass of water on your kitchen counter. Plants that are actually easier to care for without soil. And today I am going to show you 20 of them. Stick around because number 4 on this list roots so fast you can literally watch it happen within 24 hours of putting it in water. And number 20 is so simple that you can start it right now with something that is probably already sitting in your kitchen, and it will grow trailing vines that fill an entire window. Let's get into it. Here are 20 indoor plants that thrive in only water, ranked from most surprising to most iconic. Impatiens, the flowering plant that almost nobody knows can live and bloom continuously in nothing but water, producing vivid flowers in pink, red, orange, and white from a single stem cutting placed in a glass jar. Most people associate water culture with foliage plants, trailing vines, and leafy tropicals. Impatiens breaks that assumption completely. These are plants that flower continuously in plain water. Impatiens walleriana produces those familiar vivid blooms that light up shade gardens every summer, and stem cuttings placed in water will root within a week and continue flowering for months with no soil involved. Take a cutting about 4 to 6 inches long, remove the lower leaves, and place it in a glass of water in bright, indirect light. Within 5 to 7 days, roots appear. Within 2 weeks, a functional root system develops. The flowers that were already on the cutting will continue blooming while roots form, and new buds will follow. The discovery moment, the one that stops people, is watching a plant produce genuine flowers in a jar of water on a windowsill. No pot, no soil, no mess, just color. Change the water every 3 to 4 days because flowering plants consume more than foliage plants. Add a small amount of diluted liquid fertilizer weekly to sustain bloom production. Think of it as the plant that proves water culture is not just for green foliage. It can produce pure color, continuously, in nothing but a glass jar. Number 2, roots so fast that plant lovers describe checking their cutting before bed and finding visible roots by morning. The purple color deepens as the roots grow, creating a display that is as visually satisfying as anything you will see in a garden center. Number 2, purple heart, the plant with the deepest, richest purple foliage of any common indoor plant, producing visible roots within 24 hours of being placed in water and growing continuously without ever requiring soil. Tradescantia pallida produces thick stems covered in lance-shaped leaves in a deep purple so intense it sometimes appears almost black in certain light. Every node along those stems contains root structures ready to activate. When you cut a stem and place it in water, those nodes begin producing roots within hours. Check back the next morning and you will see the beginning. By the end of the week, a full root system has formed and the plant is already growing new leaves. The purple pigment intensifies in good light. Place it in a bright spot and the color becomes extraordinary. Multiple cuttings in one clear container create a display that looks like something from a design magazine at zero cost. The plant grows continuously, trailing or cascading, depending on how you position it, requiring nothing but weekly water changes and the brightest spot you can find. Think of it as the plant that desperately wants you to succeed, showing you visible proof of growth before you even have time to doubt it. Number 3, Tradescantia zebrina, silver and deep purple striped leaves on trailing stems. Roots visible within 48 hours and one of the most visually dramatic water culture plants available at any price. Tradescantia zebrina produces leaves with a metallic silver stripe running down the center of deep green-purple foliage, with rich purple undersides that flash when the light catches them. The effect in a clear glass container with the root system visible beneath is genuinely striking. Like its purple heart cousin, zebrina roots with remarkable speed. Visible root growth within 2 days is standard, a full root system within a week. The silver striping intensifies in bright light. Multiple cuttings together create a dense trailing display of silver and purple that continues growing season after season. Change the water every 3 to 5 days. Provide the brightest indirect light available. Pinch back growing tips to encourage fullness rather than long, sparse vines. The plant never needs dormancy, never drops leaves from dryness, never develops root rot because water culture eliminates the wet-dry cycle that causes it in soil. Think of it as the living decoration that maintains itself, asking for nothing but a glass of water and a well-lit windowsill. Number 4. Coleus. Leaves that look hand-painted in combinations of red, pink, crimson, yellow, and chartreuse green, rooting in 3 to 5 days in water, with colors that actually intensify compared to soil-grown plants when given adequate light. Coleus species produce some of the most vivid foliage available in any plant category. Take a cutting from a parent plant, remove the lower leaves, place the stem in water, and check back in 3 days. Root nubs will already be visible. Within 2 weeks, you have a substantial root system, and the plant is actively producing new leaves. Modern hydroponic research confirms that many Coleus varieties grow as well or better in water as in soil, with the added benefit of never needing to worry about over or underwatering. The color pigments are often more intense because consistent moisture without the stress of drought cycles allows the plant to allocate energy to pigment production rather than stress response. Grow multiple varieties together in clear containers for maximum visual impact. The plants grow quickly enough that you can start from small cuttings and have a full bushy display within 2 months. Change the water twice weekly. Coleus grows fast and can cloud water quickly. Think of it as the painting that grows and changes, refreshing itself with new color and pattern every few weeks. Number 5. Cane begonia, the plant that surprises everyone because it seems too exotic, too formal, too genuinely beautiful to thrive in plain water. Yet it will grow to 2 feet tall in a jar and flower if given adequate light. Cane begonias, also called angel wing begonias, produce tall stems with distinctive spotted or painted leaves and clusters of delicate flowers that look like they belong in a botanical illustration. They seem like plants that would demand complicated care. Then you put a cutting in water and watch it root within a week. Develop a substantial root system within 3 weeks and begin producing new leaves and eventually flowers without ever touching soil. Begonias grow as epiphytes in their native habitats, clinging to tree branches and absorbing moisture from humid air. That adaptation to consistent moisture without saturated roots translates perfectly to water culture. Take a stem cutting with several leaves, remove the bottom leaves, place in water, and check back in 5 to 7 days for root development. The plant grows steadily, producing those spectacular leaves and occasional flower clusters when light is adequate. Change the water twice weekly, provide bright, indirect light. Use a container that supports the stems as they grow tall. Some cane begonias reach 2 feet in water culture. Think of it as the plant that proves water culture is not just for tough basic plants, but can support genuinely exotic beauty. Number 6. Arrowhead plant. Growing so quickly in water that you can measure visible progress weekly, with leaf colors ranging from solid green to variegated white and pink. In a plant that produces aerial roots, naturally making the transition to water culture almost instantaneous. Syngonium podophyllum produces arrow-shaped leaves in green, white, or pink variegation. Young plants grow upright, then begin trailing as they mature. The growth rate in water culture often exceeds what happens in soil. The reason is the aerial roots the plant produces naturally along its stems. When you place a cutting in water, those structures are already present and begin functioning as water roots within days. Take cuttings with several leaves and nodes, place in water. Within 1 week, visible root growth. Within 2 weeks, substantial root systems. Within a month, new leaves actively unfurling. The plant continues this rapid growth indefinitely. Modern hydroponic experience shows that arrowhead plants actually prefer consistent moisture, making water culture ideal. They grow faster, produce more vibrant colors, and develop fuller foliage than they typically do in soil. Change the water weekly. Provide bright, indirect light. The plant will climb if given support or trail if allowed to cascade. Think of it as watching time-lapse photography in real time, seeing visible growth every single day. Number 7. Prayer plant. Leaves that fold upward at night like praying hands and open again each morning, continuing this daily movement in water culture just as they do in soil, in a plant that loves the consistent humidity that water culture naturally provides. Maranta leucanura produces leaves painted with red or white veins on green backgrounds, one of the most distinctively patterned foliage plants available. The behavior called ennictenacity, leaves tracking light during the day and folding upward at night, continues normally in water culture, creating a plant that feels genuinely alive in a way that static foliage plants do not. Prayer plants grow naturally on tropical forest floors in high humidity areas with consistently moist soil. Water culture provides exactly that environment, with the evaporating water creating a microclimate of moisture around the leaves. Take cuttings with at least 2 leaves and several nodes. Place in water in a location with bright filtered light, never direct sun. Within 2 weeks, roots develop. Within a month, new growth appears with its characteristic painted patterns. The plant continues its daily movement ritual regardless of whether it is growing in soil or water. Change the water weekly. Monitor light carefully. Too much bleaches the color patterns, too little causes fading. Think of it as having a plant with its own personality, one that interacts with you daily through its movements. Before we continue, if this kind of plant knowledge has you thinking about building a real relationship with the plants in your home, understanding what they need, how they grow, and how to use them beyond decoration, there are 3 complete practical guides in the first pinned comment below. A beginner's guide to the most powerful medicinal plants at home, 30 preparation protocols, and a complete home apothecary system. The kind of deeper knowledge that changes how you see every plant you grow. The link is in the first pinned comment whenever you are ready. Now let's keep going. Number 8. English ivy. One of the oldest water culture plants in the world, grown in glass bottles on cottage windowsills for centuries, rooting within a week in water, and trailing indefinitely with nothing but weekly water changes. Hedera helix has been a water culture plant since long before the concept had a name. Cottage gardeners in Britain and Europe grew ivy cuttings in glass bottles on windowsills as a standard practice for generations. Both for the beauty of the trailing vines and for the simple practicality of a plant that required nothing but water and a bright window. Ivy naturally grows in moist, shaded environments where its aerial roots cling to tree bark and stone walls. Those same roots adapt perfectly to water culture, developing into robust white root systems that sustain vigorous growth for years. Take cuttings in spring or summer with several leaves and at least 2 nodes. Place in water and within a week you will see root nubs. Within 2 weeks, functional roots. Within a month, new growth. Multiple cuttings in decorative glass bottles or vases create dense cascades of foliage that change a space entirely. Change the water weekly. Provide bright, indirect light. Ivy tolerates lower light better than most plants, but grows more vigorously with more. Think of it as bringing Victorian-era elegance to modern spaces, requiring nothing but a glass container and weekly attention. Number 9. Chinese evergreen. Leaves painted with patterns of silver, pink, red, and cream that look like abstract art, developing robust water root systems that sustain even large specimens indefinitely, in a plant that has been popular since Victorian times. Aglaonema species have been prized houseplants for over a century because of their tolerance of low light and neglect. That same toughness makes them surprisingly adaptable to water growing. The colorful leaves maintain their patterns and vibrancy in water culture, sometimes even intensifying in color when the plant receives adequate light. Modern experience with tropical houseplants shows that many Aglaonema varieties actually prefer consistent moisture, making water culture a natural fit. Stem cuttings with several leaves root reliably in water within 2 to 3 weeks. Once established, the plant grows steadily, unfurling new leaves with their distinctive patterns every few weeks. Maintenance is straightforward. Change water weekly, provide indirect light, and watch for algae growth, which indicates the water needs changing more frequently. The plant will continue growing for years, eventually producing clusters of small flowers if conditions are right. Think of it as having a living stained glass window that maintains itself, asking for nothing but fresh water and a spot in the light. Number 10. Spider plant. Producing baby plants called plantlets with their own tiny root systems already started, designed by nature to drop into water and begin growing immediately in a plant that multiplies itself continuously for free. Chlorophytum comosum produces long arching leaves striped with white or cream and sends out long stems with clusters of tiny white flowers that develop into plantlets, small complete plants dangling on stems like ornaments, just waiting to be placed in water. Take a plantlet with even the tiniest root nubs visible. Place it in a small glass of water. Within a week, those roots triple in length. Within 2 weeks, you have a developing plant. Within a month, new leaves unfurl and the plant begins producing its own long stems. Some people keep entire collections of spider plants in water, creating cascading displays of green and white foliage that never need soil. The plants multiply themselves continuously, producing new plantlets that can be snipped off and given as gifts or started in new containers. Change the water weekly. Provide bright, indirect light. A single spider plant in water will produce enough plantlets over a growing season to fill a windowsill. We think of it as the plant that does all the propagation work for you, dropping babies into your hand and saying, "Here, put this in water and watch what happens." Number 11. Peace lily. Traditionally grown in soil but adapting to water culture with patience, continuing to produce its distinctive white blooms even in a water-only environment, proving that water culture is not limited to simple foliage plants. Spathiphyllum species grow naturally in tropical forest floors where soil stays consistently moist. That constant moisture preference translates beautifully to water culture, with the patience to manage the transition properly. The key is allowing the plant to develop specialized water roots to replace its soil roots over several weeks. Wash all soil gently from the roots of an established plant. Place in water, changing it every few days initially as old root material breaks down. Within a few weeks, new water roots develop and the plant begins to thrive. Those distinctive white blooms, technically modified leaves called spathes, will continue appearing even in water culture once the plant is established. Change water weekly. Keep roots submerged but do not submerge the crown. Provide bright, indirect light. The plant will grow continuously, producing new leaves and occasional blooms. Think of it as the sophisticated plant that proves water culture is not just for trailing vines and basic greenery, but can support genuine flowering beauty. Number 12. Pothos, called devil's ivy because it seems nearly impossible to kill even with neglect, developing specialized water roots different from soil roots within a week, in a plant that sometimes grows more vigorously in water than in soil. Epipremnum aureum is the gateway plant to water culture. College students have been growing pothos in water for decades, often forgetting about them for weeks at a time, and these plants just keep growing. The plant develops specialized water roots, distinct from soil roots, that perfectly adapted to absorbing oxygen and nutrients directly from water. Studies on hydroponic growing confirm what plant lovers have known for generations. Pothos actually thrives in water culture, sometimes growing even more vigorously than in soil. Take a cutting with a few leaves and at least one node. Place in a glass of tap water. Within a week, roots form. Within a month, a root system so robust it looks like an underwater forest. Change the water every 1 to 2 weeks to keep it fresh and oxygenated. No soil to water, no drainage to worry about, no mess. The reason pothos and water culture got somewhat forgotten by mainstream gardening is simple. Nurseries cannot sell you soil, fertilizer, and fancy pots if you are just using a glass jar. Think of it as the gateway plant to water culture that has been showing people how easy this can be all along. Number 13. Lucky bamboo. Not actually bamboo at all, evolved to grow along riverbanks with roots permanently submerged, living for years in the same container of water and producing new leaves continuously without ever touching soil. Dracaena sanderiana produces distinctive bamboo-like stalks in a plant so perfectly suited to water that you will almost never see it grown in soil. Garden centers sell lucky bamboo in decorative containers filled with water and pebbles. The pebbles providing structural support, not nutrition. The plant has been grown in water in Asian homes and businesses for centuries, specifically for its symbolic meaning of good fortune and prosperity. It is not adapting to water culture. It evolved for it. The stalks live for years in the same container of water, producing new leaves continuously and growing taller over time. Keep the water level consistent, covering the roots and about an inch of the stalks. Change the water every 2 to 3 weeks to prevent algae. Use filtered or distilled water if your tap water is heavily chlorinated, as lucky bamboo is sensitive to fluoride. That is the entire care routine for a plant that will outlive most potted plants in your collection. Think of it as the living sculpture that maintains itself, asking for nothing more than fresh water and a spot by the window. Number 14. Heartleaf philodendron, growing on kitchen windowsills in water since your great-grandmother's time, rooting faster and more reliably in water than almost any other tropical plant, producing trailing vines of glossy heart-shaped leaves for years without soil. Philodendron heteroecium produces trailing vines covered in heart-shaped leaves that range from deep green to bronze to variegated patterns. Take a cutting with a few leaves and a node. Place it in water, and within days you will see root nubs forming. Within 2 weeks, a developing root system. Within a month, new leaves unfurling. Modern research on hydroponic growing confirms that philodendrons develop robust water root systems that can sustain the plant indefinitely. These are not temporary roots waiting to be planted in soil, but permanent functional roots adapted to aquatic life. Use a clear glass container so you can monitor root health and water quality. Change the water weekly. Place in bright, indirect light. The plant will grow continuously, producing vine after vine of glossy leaves that cascade down from a shelf or climb upward with support. Think of it as the plant that literally shows you its roots growing day by day, reminding you that sometimes the simplest approach is the most beautiful. Number 15. Dieffenbachia, where water culture achieves something that looks almost miraculous. Take what appears to be a dead stick, a bare leafless stem section cut from an old plant, place it in water, and within 2 weeks it will have roots below and new shoots emerging from the top. Dieffenbachia species grow as thick-stemmed plants that naturally drop lower leaves as they age, leaving bare stems below the leaf clusters at the top. Those bare stems are perfect for water culture. Cut them into sections 4 to 6 inches long with several nodes. Place in water and they develop both roots below and new shoots above simultaneously. The transformation seems almost miraculous. What looked like material for the compost bin becomes a developing plant with new patterned leaves unfurling within a month. Modern experience shows that Dieffenbachia actually prefers consistent moisture and suffers from the wet-dry cycles common with pot culture. In water, where moisture is constant, the plants thrive with fewer issues. Change the water weekly. Provide bright, indirect light. The dramatic patterned leaves, cream and green painted in bold, abstract designs, emerge progressively, each one slightly larger and more developed than the last. Think of it as giving old plants a second life, transforming what looked like waste into beautiful new specimens that cost nothing to start. Number 16. Monstera, the most recognizable houseplant in the world. Those iconic split and perforated leaves, growing long-term in water as a statement piece in large containers, proving that water culture is not limited to small cuttings but can support genuine showpiece plants. Monstera deliciosa produces leaves that can span 2 feet across on mature plants. The plant develops thick aerial roots naturally, and those aerial roots are exactly what make it so surprisingly well-suited to water culture. Take a cutting that includes at least 1 leaf and 1 aerial root, place in a large container of water. Within weeks, the existing aerial root adapts to water, and new water roots develop from nodes along the stem. Add liquid fertilizer to the water every 2 weeks, because plants this large need nutrients that plain water alone cannot provide indefinitely. Change the water weekly. With adequate light and nutrients, the plant continues producing new leaves. Research on hydroponic growing confirms that Monstera species can thrive indefinitely without soil if they receive adequate nutrients. They actually appreciate the consistent moisture that water culture provides. Think of it as the plant that proves water culture is not just for small cuttings and trailing vines. It can support genuine showpieces that anchor an entire room. Number 17. Dracaena, the patient, architectural water dweller that grows slowly but with remarkable stability, living for years in clean water without asking for anything beyond bi-weekly water changes and moderate light. Dracaena marginata and related species produce those distinctive spiky leaves on woody stems, with a slow, steady growth rate that suits them perfectly to long-term water culture. They do not grow fast, but they do not stop. They add new leaves at the crown, while older leaves gradually and naturally yellow and drop, a process that continues in water exactly as it does in soil. The plants are adapted to environments with inconsistent rainfall, making them extremely efficient with water and nutrients. In a water culture setup, they take what they need slowly and steadily. Use distilled or filtered water because Dracaena is sensitive to fluoride in tap water, which can cause leaf tip browning over time. Change water every 2 weeks. Provide moderate light. That is the entire care routine for a plant that will live quietly and beautifully in a container of water for years. Think of it as the plant that proves water culture can support long-term stable growth, not just fast-growing novelties. Number 18. Mint, growing faster and more vigorously in water than almost anywhere else, providing a continuous supply of fresh leaves for tea, cooking, and cocktails from a glass jar on the kitchen counter. with all the aggressive spread of garden mint perfectly contained. Mentha species: spearmint, peppermint, chocolate mint, apple mint. Root with remarkable speed in water. Take cuttings from established plants, remove the lower leaves, place in water, and within days roots form. Within 2 weeks, enough new growth to start harvesting. The vigor that makes mint an invasive nightmare in garden soil becomes a pure advantage in water culture. Cut what you need, and the plant responds by producing even more growth. It becomes a self-replenishing herb garden in a glass jar. Traditional herb gardening struggles with mint precisely because it spreads so aggressively in soil, taking over beds and infiltrating neighboring plants. In water culture, that same energy is perfectly channeled into continuous leaf production in exactly the space the jar provides. Change the water twice weekly. Mint grows fast and consumes nutrients quickly. Provide bright light, ideally a sunny window. Harvest regularly to encourage bushiness rather than long, sparse stems. Think of it as having a farmer's market herb stand on your windowsill, producing fresh harvests continuously without ever needing to shop. Number 19. Basil. Rooting in water within a week from grocery store cuttings, producing leaves continuously for months, with the added benefit that water-grown basil often develops more intense essential oils and more flavor than soil-grown plants given adequate light. Ochium basilicum, sweet basil, Thai basil, purple basil. Roots quickly from stem cuttings. Take the top 4 to 6 inches of stems from a grocery store bunch. Remove lower leaves. Place in water. Within a week, roots begin forming. Within 2 weeks, functioning root systems and active growth. Modern research on herb cultivation confirms that basil adapts well to hydroponic growing, often producing more essential oils and more flavorful leaves than soil-grown plants when given adequate light. The consistent moisture without stress cycles allows the plant to maximize oil production. Each time you harvest leaves from the top, the plant branches and becomes bushier. You can maintain the same basil plant for months, continually harvesting while new growth replaces what you take. Change the water every 3 to 4 days because basil leaves contain oils that cloud water. Provide the brightest light available. Basil wants as much sun as possible. Add diluted liquid fertilizer weekly. Think of it as having fresh ingredients on demand. No grocery store, no wilted herbs in the refrigerator. Just growth and flavor whenever you need it. Number 20. Sweet potato vine. The plant you can start right now with something already in your kitchen, producing trailing vines that fill an entire window from a single sweet potato placed in a jar of water. Exactly the way grandmothers did it and exactly as effective today. Take a sweet potato from your pantry. Organic works best because conventional ones are often treated with sprout inhibitors. Place it in a jar or container of water with the pointy end down and about half the potato submerged. Within a week, roots emerge from the bottom. Within 2 weeks, sprouts appear from the top. Within a month, trailing vines with heart-shaped leaves grow down from the container. Within 2 months, those vines can be several feet long, cascading across a windowsill or down from a shelf in a display that looks deliberately cultivated but cost essentially nothing. Sweet potatoes are storage organs packed with energy, specifically designed to produce new plants. When you put one in water, you are activating natural processes that are fully ready to go. The leaves can be solid green, purple, or variegated depending on the variety. The vines keep growing for months. This got forgotten because it is old-fashioned, the kind of thing your grandmother did. But it works exactly as well today as it ever did. No special equipment, no expensive plants, no complicated care, just a potato, a jar, water, and a window. Think of it as the plant that reminds us that growing things does not have to be complicated or expensive. Sometimes the most spectacular results come from the most basic ingredients. 20 plants, all of them thriving in nothing but water. All of them easier to care for than their soil-grown equivalents in at least one significant way. No overwatering, no underwatering, no drainage problems, no fungus gnats, no soil mess. For anyone who watched all the way through, the complete practical guide to growing, using, and getting the most from medicinal and useful plants at home is in the first pinned comment below. Use the code FULLVIDEO at checkout for 20% off. The link is in the pinned comment whenever you are ready. The reason water culture got partially forgotten by mainstream gardening is the same reason most simple things get forgotten. There is nothing to sell. You cannot market a glass jar. You cannot charge for tap water. You cannot build a subscription around remembering to change water every week. The plant industry profits from complexity, specialized soils, fertilizer programs, humidity monitors, and drainage systems. Water culture requires none of it. A container. Water. Light. The plant does the rest. Your grandparents knew this. The windowsill knew it. The plants knew it all along. Tell me in the comments, which of these 20 are you starting with? Do you already have any growing in water? Drop it below. I read every comment. Share this with someone who thinks plants are too complicated. Subscribe and ring the bell. I will see you in the next one.